That's weird. I have two pods. Huh. That's 373 kilometers away. Oh. I see. Oh, my bad there. I hope it gets automatically redone. H-list is the command I was looking for. Man, you know what? I need to make a chair here, a command. Or what about the lights? Interior light, corner light, spotlight. I think I'll do a few spotlight here to illuminate this shit. I need steel plates. Man, it is hard without. It's hard without a light. Alright, that should work. Why the hell am I dying? So weird. So weird that I'm dying. Okay. So weird. Maybe there's like a storm or something. It's also bad that it's still night since the last time we connected. Or it's just tough luck, huh? Tough luck. Alrighty. Thank God our base is still here. Thank God. Okay, we have this survival kit. We also have this other survival kit that was in the mountain area. Not sure. You know what? No, man. H load. I guess 1. Where did it load? It's still the same as before. Oh, but we already have some power. We're able to build the spotlight here. We need interior plates, bulletproof. All right. Couple of these, couple of these, couple of these, couple of these, and I think some. All right. Now we need some construction components. Forgot those. Not sure if this spotlight is too big. Let me see. Ooh. Can I turn it on? No, I might have to do it through a panel here. Let's see. Spotlight on color. Oh shit, we actually do have light now. Since we're gonna go Martians usually have some red lights, right? There we go. Kind of orangey, kind of the lights of the Alliance, right? Ooh, look at this. Oh my god, this spotlight doesn't doesn't shine so much. Is it me? Let's see, intensity. Here we go. We gotta increase that intensity. Offset too. Okay. More concentrated. No. Blink interval. Oh, I see. Blink length. Blink offset. No blink. No blink. Alrighty. Nice. It's looking good. Gotta continue watching the show today a little bit to remember more or less what we have to do. Oops, shit. I'm actually damaging it. I need 80 power cells. Let me see. To get 80 power cells, my man, I'm gonna have to spend. I'm gonna have to get a lot of lead. What is the best way to get lead? Probably just mining. I probably just gotta do a little bit of mining. I'll go get the beacon soon. I forget how many pieces you can have in the server, but yeah, guys, make sure to donate. All that's donated will be resent back to the server, because I think it's just epic. I think it's epic, and we should all support it. Never been so excited to play some Space Engineers. Let's see. I still don't know how to check fully my total blocks, the total blocks that I have. I guess it's like something like a command, stats command or something. But alright, let's keep on mining a bit. Alrighty. Actually, the mining is going quite fast. Now that we reached this second layer, it was getting quite good. Let's see. Alright guys, remember to let me know which is your favorite faction. Favorite Favorite faction and favorite character in the Expanse. I think Amos for me. Amos is a good one. Who else? Amos is the classic one, right? Oh shit! Wait, I have 2 holes now. Nice. Wait, what? Maybe Amos, maybe I forgot the names of a lot of them actually. I always liked Tycho Station. I was a fan of that. It was like they were making the first interstellar ship, something like that, but spoiler alert. They didn't work. It didn't work, but at the end they just found the gates. It's like, what? Couldn't it have been just like let the engines continue progressing? But I guess they have to follow the book storyline, right? Okay. What is my efficiency level? Power efficiency 100%. But lead. How much lead am I actually producing? Okay, we got enough for 2 cells right now. It's a hard map. Right? Yeah, it's not so easy. Actually, you know, you gotta mine a bunch. So I like it. I like the challenge. When we actually go to space, it won't be because we just gotta. Well, I mean, we actually have like 50 million. I think we have enough to buy like, I think a lot of ships. But no, I'm gonna hold off on buying things. I might donate. That I don't feel is well earned at himself, but no need to worry about it. Automated cleanup. What's the new prospector thingy? The Keen server should allow transfer of players just as this server does, you know? Being able to, you know, not have to play just in a single server, or that the same server is just connected. The Keen servers are all connected together. That would be cool, but it's alright. They're still developing it. They're trying to put things on, but I just feel, now that I'm playing again, I just feel the mods are way cooler, way more advanced than anything that the game is. I don't know, the mods advanced faster, right, than the game itself. What do you guys think? Let's see. Oh shit, I lost my other hole. I lost my big hole. we're gonna make a mining drill soon on the base, and then we're gonna do a little bit of mining with that. Doesn't seem like the floor has refilled. Refined speed 65%, but why? Why though? What if we turn this off? Power efficiency is at 100%, but the refined speed. Oh, I think you can put like some boosters, right? Too. Now, like some accelerators, production accelerators. I'm not sure. I think I saw something about it. All right, let's see. Gotta keep on doing some more mining. I want it to be day. Want it to be day soon. It looks so pretty here in the day. Energy systems low. Let's recharge a bit. See how many more batteries we can run. Let ingots. Are you sure I cannot build more of these? That's because we turned it off though. Is that right? We're taking our sweet time here, you know? Building our first battery. The getting a battery is super hard. The energy production in this server is crazy good, but crazy. Dreamy. All right. I gotta make a better stairway here. It says that every player gets 0.5 something something scripting power. I'm thinking of making like some launch drones, to be honest, something really cool that can follow the enemy and just destroy them. I plan more on making maybe some launch systems to attack the enemy more than engaging with my main ship. My main ship will actually be small, I hope. Will be the heart of the big ship, but it will be like a separate component. I guess. Ow. Oh. Alright. So wait, how many more things do I need? I need, on the production thing, I need 10 times more lead ingots than we have mined, and about 60 times more. Wow. 60 times more, what's it called? More iron, more copper. 60 times more copper. No, 20 times more copper. 10 times more lead and 20 times more copper is what we need. So we gotta do about 100 runs here. Good thing is that in this server you mine really fast. Like extremely fast. I guess maybe they forgot to make the backpack in a big way, but it's all good. What? Even gravity, I think, is a little bit less. I just feel I jump a lot. I'm not sure. Might be the same Earth-like planet. Alright. Quick trips here, to be honest. I mean, I'm still keeping my refinery at 100%, you know, so... I need like 100k worth of rock. Oops. Oh, look at that. Look at that jump. I need about 60 more copper. Wow. That's gonna be a lot of copper. What happened?
No, she didn't connect it, but I remember she told me that she was going to celebrate her brother's birthday, but I told her that if she could send me a message to confirm, but no one sent me that message, so
Oh,
I'm guessing that she went, you know?
yeah.
She was like, yeah, I was not very sure.
Okay. Alright. Still have like 80 more trips. Oh, that was a nice jump. Gotta recharge the battery. Floating objects will clean up. Block limit to seal upgrades. You got drills on. Shared tools. Oh, nice. Welder ship. I can have 30 pods. Interesting. We're barely at 10%, or 5%, sorry, of the copper. Maybe 10% when it finishes smelting. I have to make the roof a little bit bigger. Everything okay, babe? Love you. Alright. Oh, I connected the two mines. Nice. Maybe I should make another refinery. I think I will. After this run. See. Oh, but I need the structural elements. Let's see if I have some in the ship. Battery. Has a lot of batteries, so maybe I'll recycle them. Let's see. Seven batteries. That's a lot of batteries. Steel plates. Oh. I made 8 cells. I need 4 times that. Okay. Maybe I can make a drill before that, actually. Let's see. Heavy duty motors. Oh, we have some of those. Belter components. Alright. They say we can't hear, so. Also belter components. Magnetic plates. I'm gonna make a little bit of a space. Maybe I should make it two higher so it's easier to place. All right. This is the right. Yeah, we're gonna do a 3x3. The 5x5 uses the same amount of heavy-duty motors. I just gotta make a little bit more space. Fuel is low. Alright. We need large steel tubes and motors. Let's go back to the drop pod for a second.
Mi lectura en un gato.
Sí, pues. No, ni modo que le digamos que no. Right?
Yeah. Porque tengo this and then the class and then the class at 8:30. That's gonna be until 10, so I need to rest a bit.
Okay, baby. I agree.
Well, if you want to come, you're welcome to come to cozy and warm place.
Yes, beautiful.
Oye, ¿tienes a tu hija Remy ahí contigo?
¿Te la llevas?
No, espérate.
You sure?
Yeah.
I don't really want her.
Me neither. ¿No es cierto? No, ahí está como ahorita ya.
Server cleanup, vote Draconis. You support us in chat and then reward for the reward. Alright. Happened to the music though. Let's listen to an audiobook today. I was listening to one audiobook.
The Black Ship.
Black
Chapter
Ship.
1. Flying a garbage ship wasn't the sort of thing a cadet imagined himself doing at the academy. No, those fantasies usually involved a shiny new ship and a grand space battle that the cadets were the dashing heroes of. Of course, those fantasies were reserved for the cadets from the nobility. For a commoner, they would always be just that, fantasies. In other, less backwards places, a drone ship would be handling mundane tasks like hauling the garbage. Here in the Principality, however, people like Wyatt were the drones. The job itself wasn't that bad. There was no smell, as Wyatt rarely had to exit his cockpit. He just flew towards the inhospitable rock that had been colonized for the sole purpose of turning garbage like his into useful compost, dropped off his container of bio-waste, and went back to his space station for more. He had done this for the past 2 years now. Not once in all that time had anything remotely interesting happened to Wyatt. He had assumed that trend would hold today, but then his sensors started beeping. Warp signatures detected rang the crackly voice of his ship's archaic computer. Warp signatures? Out here? The Principality was a backwater. Wyatt's post was a backwater of that backwater. For something other than a garbage ship to be flying in the same system as him, and at warp no less, something was going on. Wyatt hit the switch for the external cameras, something he never had any reason to do. Computer, can you get a visual of the vessel? Affirmative. Wyatt's screen lit up and he saw a small but familiar outline. Magnify image. The outline grew, and Wyatt immediately knew why he recognized it. That's the Royal Yacht! He was barely able to finish the sentence before his heart sank into his feet as he saw an explosion go off just a handful of kilometers away from the Royal Yacht. The yacht had its point defense systems online, which meant that it was under attack. Someone was attacking the royal family. Computer, get me a visual on the other vessel. Unable to comply. No other heat signatures detected. What? Computer, track the trajectory of the missiles back to their source. The old computer was painfully slow in performing the tasks, but eventually it chimed calculations complete. Display visual and magnify. It was difficult to see at first. It was black as the void, and only visible when you noticed the system's red dwarf's light faintly reflecting off of it. The ship was quite some distance away, and his ship's external camera was ancient, so he could barely make out an outline of what appeared to be a Corvette-sized warship. Its silhouette was vaguely in the shape of an arrowhead, with 2 almost invisible lights coming out its back end, presumably its engines. If it was keeping up with the Royal Yacht, arguably the fastest ship in the Principality, then it was more advanced than anything in the Royal Fleet. He couldn't guess as to why the ship was attacking the Royal Yacht. Computer, track that ship. Understood. Wyatt tried to calm the space station, but the black ship was jamming transmissions. He wasn't in much of a position to help. His ship was essentially just a cockpit with oversized engines. Its sole purpose was to mag-lock itself to the back of cargo containers and carry them to a destination. Its only armament was a small point defense cannon for destroying asteroids, and it had no armor or other defenses to speak of besides the standard navigational EM field. Of course, he had to try. This was the Royal Yacht after all. He punched an intercept course into the computer, and the old engines roared with new life. It was a bumpy ride at max speed, but the rickety old ship held together. The black ship must have been built for stealth, as it produced almost no heat signature for his sensors to detect. The computer had been tracking the vessel's position visually since it had located it, so its stealth didn't pose too much of a problem at the moment. He charged up the point defense cannon and nearly fell out of his chair with fright when the warning siren sounded and the cannon opened fire and destroyed a missile at a distressingly close distance. Evidently, their sensors detected me. The ship threw a few token missiles Wyatt's way, but it didn't appear too concerned, and remained focused on the yacht. Wyatt might have been offended, but he was too relieved that his point defense cannon had managed to destroy the 3 incoming missiles sent his way. It occurred to Wyatt that he had no plan. Then he heard a small alarm go off. The cargo container had been hit by some shrapnel and was venting air. Specifically, methane was venting. I guess I have my plan now. He punched some numbers through the computer, and his idea appeared to be somewhat possible. He just had to get very dangerously close. At the very least, he might be able to buy time for his commander at the space station to realize what was going on and send some help. He would only have 1 shot, so he better not miss. He laid in the new course and pushed the engines well beyond their safety levels. He was getting very, very close, for outer space anyway. Computer lock the point defense cannon on the cargo container and open fire 5 seconds after maglock is disengaged. Command processed. He was well into mass driver range, and he did a few evasive maneuvers to avoid some incoming mass driver rounds. By the time whoever was in charge realized something serious was going down, it was far too late. Computer release maglock! His stomach almost flew out of his throat as he slammed the ship in full reverse. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The cannon opened fire and hit the cargo container a split second after the container had collided with the black ship. An explosion followed, and although...
Damn. I didn't...
rickety old ship held together. The black ship must have been built for stealth, as it produced almost no heat signature for his sensors to detect. The computer had been tracking the vessel's position visually since it had located it, so its stealth didn't pose too much of a problem at the moment. He charged up the point defense cannon and nearly fell out of his chair with fright when the warning siren sounded and the cannon opened fire and destroyed a missile at a distressingly close distance. Evidently, their sensors detected me. The ship threw a few token missiles Wyatt's way, but it didn't appear and remained focused on the yacht. Wyatt might have been offended, but he was too relieved that his point defense cannon had managed to destroy the 3 incoming missiles sent his way.
Since my little ship didn't have a...
no plan. Then he heard a small alarm go off. The cargo container had been hit by some shrapnel and was
I want to listen to...
Specifically, methane.
Didn't have a beacon, it got reset.
He punched some numbers through the computer, and his idea appeared to be somewhat possible. He just had to get very dangerously close. At the very least, he might be able to buy time for his commander at the space station to realize what was going on and send some help. He would only have 1 shot, so he better not miss. He laid in the new course and pushed the engines well beyond their safety
construction
limits.
components.
He was getting very, very close, for outer space anyway. Computer lock the point defense cannon on the cargo container and open fire 5 seconds after maglock is disengaged. Command processed. He was well into mass driver range, and he did a few evasive maneuvers to avoid some incoming mass driver rounds. By the time whoever was in charge realized something serious was going down, it was far too late. Computer release maglock! His stomach almost flew out of his throat as he slammed the ship in full reverse.
Computer release
1,
maglock.
2, 3, 4, 5. The cannon opened fire and hit the cargo container a split second after the container had collided with the black ship. An explosion followed, and although muted by the lack of oxygen outside the container, the black ship broke off its pursuit. Wyatt wasn't sure if he had caused any significant damage, but it had evidently been enough to spook the commander of the ship. The black ship limped away like a wounded predator, fires still raging on its hull. Wyatt was immediately hailed by the yacht. A tall man with dark gray hair and the colorless irises of cybernetic eyes appeared on his screen. This is Ship Commander Redford of His Majesty's Starship Royal Favor. State your identity. Wyatt Staples, Warrant Officer, 3rd Fleet, 2nd Frontier Corps. A commoner? Well, I guess you'll have to do. Obviously. Who else would be flying a bucket like this? Oh, and you're welcome. Warrant Officer was the highest rank a commoner could achieve in the Royal Fleet, and even then that was reserved exclusively for pilots. Whether or not a pilot was a warrant officer was a good way to tell if they were a commoner or not. At your service, Commander. How'd you get the ship to break off? Our sensors indicate no armament other than a PC cannon. I, threw my garbage at it and it exploded. What? Lots of natural combustibles produced by bio-waste. I launched the container at the ship, then I ignited it. That's some trick. Not bad for a commoner, huh? The commander tapped some control panels around him a few times, then his face scrunched up. I can't raise the space station. Our comms must be down. Try hailing them yourself. Wyatt hailed his space station.
I need
and
2
got
power
nervous.
cells.
A little worm of a bad feeling wiggled its way into his chest. The black ship wasn't jamming him anymore, which meant that he should be able to send his message. And he knew damn well that the comms officer on the space station had absolutely nothing better he could be doing instead of answering his message. So, either he was being deliberately ignored, or the station was under attack. Commander Redford chimed in. Can't raise them, huh? I worried as much. Who's your commanding officer? Wyatt calmed back. My CO is Lieutenant Commander Thomas Caiston. Caiston? Damn. House Caiston is a subordinate of House Draymore. They'd have sided against us. That kid must have pissed someone off to be way out here. They probably offered to let him out of the doghouse if he looked the other way. What do you mean, sir? Just what I needed. There's been a coup, son. Duke Draymore of Camrim has stormed the
That was a
Council
nice
of
jump.
Nobles and the Royal Palace. All he needed to make his government official was the prince's consent. Fortunately, he escaped. He's on another ship heading for Loyalist forces. We're transporting a VIP to him. I was hoping this system was remote enough that we could safely resupply at your station. That Caiston bastard must have signaled our position. Little Weasel probably thought it would get him out of this posting, I bet. Yeah, that sounds like Commander Caiston. Wyatt's mind raced as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. He was just a commoner. He never imagined being caught in the midst of a political maelstrom that could shape the future of the Principality. Yet here he was, holding the comms with a high-ranking noble amidst a coup d'etat. Commander Redford's next words snapped Wyatt back to reality. Warrant Officer Staples, we can't linger here. We're moving to rendezvous with the Prince. Given your creative problem-solving, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join us. Your knowledge of this area could prove valuable. Wyatt hesitated. Joining the Loyalist forces meant abandoning his routine life, but he had just defended the royal family's ship. There was no going back to being just a garbage hauler after today. I accept.
Garbage hauler.
What are your orders?
Damn.
Plot a
That's
course to
tough.
follow us. Maintain a close formation. We'll need to jump to FTL as soon as we're clear of the system's gravity well. As the coordinates from the Royal Favor beamed over, Wyatt set his ship's path. It wasn't designed for combat, but it had maneuverability that could keep pace with the royal yacht. The small fleet, now 2 ships strong, moved towards the edge of the system. Every second that passed was tense. Wyatt expected another attack, but none came. Perhaps the explosion he caused had sent a message, or maybe the attackers were licking their wounds. As they finally broke free from the system's gravitational pull, Wyatt's ship shuddered into FTL alongside the Royal Favor. He couldn't shake off the feeling that his life had changed forever. Chapter 2. In the safety of FTL travel, Commander Redford briefed Wyatt on the political landscape. Being a commoner, he lacked the proper education and know-how to comprehend the complex internal dealings and conflicts that the nobility dealt with on a daily basis. Luckily for him, he was no more.
I gotta do a little bit more mining until I can do those 2 batteries. Fuck.
He understood enough to see the bigger picture, and it was not a pretty one. In short, the Duke's betrayal was deep, and his reach was far. To just stand against Duke Draymore's forces, the Prince would need to gather every ally he could muster if he wished to thwart the Duke's ambitions. The journey in itself was a blur, and when they dropped out of FTL, they were greeted by a small contingent of loyalist ships.
That's the type of jump I
Only
like.
21 ships, but almost all of them were armed and ready to fight. It wasn't quite a fleet suitable for actual battle, but it was well defended. The most impressive ship, however, was at the center of the protective bubble the rest of the ships formed around it. A large cruiser armed across its entire outer hull, but retaining a visually appealing vista. That must be the flagship of this fleet, Wyatt thought to himself as he approached the ship next to the royal yacht. The hangar of the flagship was big and wide enough to allow both ships easy access with room to spare, and soon Wyatt found himself surrounded by more luxury and technological marvels than all his prior years of training and service combined. The personnel
Nice.
didn't pay him any mind as he exited his flying trash hauler, but when Commander Redford stepped out of the yacht, everyone saluted him. Seeing him on video was one thing, seeing him in person was another altogether. The older gray-haired man was easily a head taller than him, Wyatt noticed, and his uniform looked like it could cost the same as a line shuttle, if not more. Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples, I thank you once more for your aid and loyalty. Come with me, Redford said loud enough to be heard and in a commanding tone that didn't leave room for debate that it was an order. Wyatt nodded and followed the man through the corridors of the ship in silence while he admired the beauty of the ship. Old, fevered dreams of an innocent child came to him, imagining himself serving on such a ship. He was a commoner, and unlike most of his dream-chasing classmates back in the academy, he knew his place and knew that piloting or commanding such a vessel was impossible. But serving as a regular crewman, that was more feasible and realistic. Regardless, a dream it was, and it would remain that way. I wonder if even the lesser nobles and any bastard offspring stationed here know how lucky they are, he asked himself, already knowing the answer, and not allowing his resentment and distaste for the nobility to show on his face. He was a commoner, and like most commoners, he both envied and disliked the nobles, but he was careful and never allowed it to show, always careful to present himself with submission and apparent loyalty. Well, that wasn't entirely true. He was loyal to the principality, and while he had no love for the stuck-up nobles that ruled it, he wasn't a rebel nor a petty bastard who would love to see a noble grovel at his feet or die in battle if he could help it. Besides, he could make any snarky remarks in his head and won't get in trouble for it. Finally arriving at the bridge, Wyatt saw a few officers and crewmen manning their posts, but the figure wearing a blue suit with golden trims stood out above the rest. He was wearing a cape with the crest of the royal family on it. When he turned, Wyatt saw the face of the blonde prince in person for the first time in his life. His features were refined, and he was more handsome than the propaganda videos and the news could portray. He was tall, just a few inches smaller than Redford, and his build was not quite bulky, but not lean either. His eyes were violet, a departure from the usual dullness of cybernetic eyes, and spoke of either genetic alteration or higher-grade cybernetics, the kind that cost the same as his old station 10 times over. But more than that, his expression was soft yet stoic, eyes burning with the intensity of a man ready to claim his birthright. His gaze made Wyatt stiffen at attention. "Report, Commander Redford," the prince spoke. Wyatt stood in silence as Redford quickly and eloquently recounted the assault he had suffered, the unexpected intervention, and their eventual departure. When he was done, the prince allowed himself a brief sigh before turning his attention to Wyatt. "Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples," he spoke in a deliberate, cordial, but powerful tone, causing Wyatt to stiffen more despite the shock of being addressed directly by the prince of all people. "Your actions today have saved the lives of many loyal subjects, and more importantly, the life of my family. I, personally, am in your debt." Am I dreaming?
Am I
Is this even
dreaming?
real?
Damn.
Did I actually get hit by that ship's missiles and I'm just experiencing a fever dream before I die? Wyatt asked himself, too perplexed by the prince's words. But the fire in his eyes and his thumping heart revealed that this was reality and that it was happening. Still feeling overwhelmed, he cleared his throat before replying. "Your Highness, I only did what I thought was the right thing to do. A commoner such as I cannot be in your debt for doing what is expected of me," he replied as seriously as he could without letting his voice crack due to his nervousness. The prince surprised him again when he offered a faint smirk.
Oh, yes.
"Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples, your actions represent the very essence of duty the principality was founded on. Do not lower your actions before me. Commoner or not, you are responsible for the safety of those close to me," he replied, his eyes shining with determination and the brightness of a leader's resolve. "Loyalty is its own reward, and those that perform their duty with exemplary actions shall be recognized. Warrant Officer Wyatt Staples, as of this moment, you are officially promoted to the rank of lieutenant."
Lieutenant.
Wyatt took a step back, and even Commander Redford seemed surprised by the prince's
Even I am
proclamation.
surprised.
My prince,
Are you sure?
I am honored, but I'm a commoner." "I know. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't do this. Our laws, both written and in spirit, would not approve of your increase in rank, for you are indeed a commoner. However, before I am a prince, I am a brother. I am a man, and these are times of turmoil and, one could say, desperation. My gratitude cannot and will not be limited by a mere monetary compensation. Loyalty and duty are to be rewarded for your service. Your bravery reflects what the Duke Draymore, my uncle, lacks in his men. And I fear yours is but the first of many acts of valor we shall need in these trying days that lay before us. It wasn't until that moment that Wyatt finally began to realize the gravity of the situation he was really in. But I'm only a pilot, not even a true combat pilot at that. I'm a refuse ship pilot. And now I'm caught in a web that's about to change the future and history of the
Display and computer.
The truth was as clear as the light of a star. His home, the Principality, was going to descend into a civil war at worst and a succession war at best. The weight of the realization hit him harder than his ship going at FTL. Commander Redford, take Lieutenant Wyatt to his quarters so he may rest and suit up properly. Make sure to register him into the memorandum of our ship's logs and personnel, the Prince ordered, and turned around. Welcome aboard, Lieutenant Wyatt Staples. Wyatt didn't really hear the Prince and only mumbled something incoherent before Redford gently nudged him over and turned to follow the taller man. When they were far away from the bridge and entered the section of the cruiser that housed the officer quarters, Redford spoke up. "Do not dwell too deeply on such thoughts, Wyatt," he said seriously, his face stoic. Wyatt snapped out of his mind's maelstrom and looked at the gray-haired man, puzzled. I know you're scared. You're a commoner. You lack the advantages people
1,
such
2,
as I
3,
possess.
4, 5,
And yet,
6,
I
7,
must
8,
urge you to
9,
not
10,
think too
11,
deeply
12,
about
13,
upcoming
14, 15,
conflicts,
16,
he
17, 18,
replied, knowing what was going through the newly minted lieutenant's mind. Easy
Okay.
for you to say that. You're only worried about your wealth and position, he thought bitterly. There's going to be a war, isn't there? To his credit, Redford nodded. It's already brewing and spreading. Soon enough, the houses, both great and minor, will start picking sides and conflict will arise. My liege is trying to avoid an outright civil war from sparking, but he shall not relinquish that which belongs to him by birthright. Only he can lead the Principality. He paused for a moment and placed a hand on Wyatt's shoulder, squeezing it gently. You've already picked a side, the correct side, Lieutenant Wyatt Staples. Be proud of your bravery, loyalty, and dutiful actions, but most importantly, know that had you not aided me when you did, regardless of the outcome, you would still be dragged into this conflict, most likely against your will. He's right on that at least, he thought, surprised that it actually helped to ease his nerves and racing heart. We commoners don't have much room for choice as it is. I guess I will not be dying for my old commander's ambitions, so that's a bonus. Redford's lips curled upward to form a small smile. A fortunate one indeed. Coming to a halt a few seconds later, he turned to leave. This shall be your quarters, Wyatt. You are now logged in the ship's records and manifest. Rest. You've earned it. Thank you, Commander Redford. Take care, he said, and the commander offered a single nod before departing. Standing in front of his door, Wyatt touched the panel at the side of it, and the door slid open to the side, revealing a small cabin. There was a desk, a small fridge, an empty bookshelf above the desk, a lamp, a nightstand, and a bed. Entering his new quarters, he saw a small cubicle that housed the toilet and a shower, most likely. To a noble, it wasn't impressive. But for Wyatt, who had only known the comfort of his ship, communal showers, and a far too small bunk, it was the height of luxury. He laid on his bed, his mind reeling about everything that was happening around him. Then, only moments later, darkness took him, and soon he was asleep. The toll finally catching up to him. Chapter 3. After a refreshing shower and getting to put on his new uniform, all that really changed about it was that it was new. It felt great to wear it, and the badges and insignia showcasing his new rank, two realizations struck him. The first was that, besides Commander Redford, he had no idea who else he had saved from that dreadful black ship. The sincere words of the prince were clear enough, though. He had saved a member of the royal family, but who? The prince had 4 younger brothers and 3 younger sisters, if he remembered correctly. Had he saved one of them? 2? All? And who's to say that he had saved any of his siblings? Duke Draymore wasn't the only Duke or Duchess after all, and the Prince had many cousins and other family members. He really didn't care, but he did owe his new position in life to said royal blue blood, so the least he could do was say thank you. The second realization, though, was much more impactful and important. Namely speaking, he had no idea how to be a lieutenant. His officer training was limited, obviously enough, and while he knew the chain of command and more or less what it entailed, he didn't know anything about commanding anything that wasn't his ship's outdated AI.
I gotta
Who
build.
am I supposed to report to or when?
I gotta build.
Softly. Redford's
I gotta build a little bit
fear
more
gripped his heart.
energy.
What was he getting himself into? Willing or not, by choice or by chance, at that moment he longed for the dullness, repetitiveness, and security his old post offered. Now I'm going to fight and likely die for another noble with bluer blood than the insufferable Thomas Cayston, he said to himself.
Steel plates
but
and
almost
construction
immediately confronted himself with the
components.
knowledge that, unlike his previous commander, the Prince was a leader at heart, and his presence inspired confidence. A sudden voice sparked in his cabin, and the monotone tone of an AI called out. "Lieutenant Wyatt Staples, report to the bridge," it said, and the connection died. "Guess I better go perform my new duties," he said, and stood up from his bed. Fortunately, the trip to the bridge proved simple enough, and only 2 crew members had spotted him and, much to his surprise, saluted him. Or rather, his rank. It felt odd regardless. When he arrived at the bridge, it was buzzing with activity as staff and crew members moved about performing their jobs. He then spotted Commander Redford and several other men and women of high rank near the Prince. Following protocol, he saluted and announced his presence. "Lieutenant Wyatt Staples reporting, my liege." Several eyes turned to him, and instantly he felt like a piece of meat been grated by hungry customers. Disdain, surprise, contempt, and flickering gratitude flashed before the cybernetic and gene-altered eyes of the officers present as they inspected him. Yeah, I'm a commoner. I'm not an animal you can gawk at, you damn blue bloods," he thought with equal disdain toward them. But unlike the nobles, he knew better than to show it. "So it is true, a commoner has been granted a rank far above his station." A red-haired man with a burn scar on his left cheek broke the tension. "My prince, are you certain of your decision? The implications could be bothersome to less open-minded individuals?" Or, in other words, I should be kicked out, Wyatt thought, mentally glaring at the red-headed noble. "Are you implying that I should not show my gratitude to the
Nice.
man
I
who
like it.
saved
I'm
my
liking
beloved
it.
sister?"
I'm liking the
Said,
cargo
even
truck.
so. The red-haired man laughed, much to Wyatt's surprise. "Of course not, your majesty. But now that a commoner has been granted a rank that only those of noble blood should achieve, many others may seek the same elevation for doing piss-poor actions in the near future." Commander William Hempstroke, a blue-haired with equally stunning blue eyes, stepped in, humor in her voice. "Is the rescue of a royal princess not enough merit to overlook this one incident? After all, many houses have their origins in the valiant actions of a commoner performing beyond their duty. And even if the prince had not rewarded this young man, I would have made sure to grant him a place within my house for saving the life of my little sister." Suddenly, her eyes narrowed, and much like a hawk, she eyed the rest of her fellow officers. "Or does anyone object?" An older man with gray hair and wearing an almost entirely white uniform with red trims and more medals than Wyatt had ever seen anyone wear before spoke up next. "Enough prattle, everyone. We have more important matters to attend to. My liege, we are ready to depart at your command." The prince nodded once. "Then let us go. We cannot stay in this system much longer. Admiral Damien, proceed at your discretion."
Ooh, I made a little mistake here.
"Commanders, report to your ships and stations.
I
Have your
mean,
orders.
maybe.
Dismissed." At once, every commander
You know,
present
I can
saluted and
just
left, with the exception of Redford.
do
The Admiral,
this.
for his part, moved to a chair at the far
There
end
we
of the
go.
bridge, sat
We'll
on it,
fix it.
and linked with its systems directly. The only indication that they started to move was a low rumble that was felt rather than heard, and Wyatt wondered where they were headed next. Now left with relative privacy, the prince turned his attention back to him and gestured him to step closer, and so he did. "Lieutenant Wyatt, there is someone who wishes to meet you, her savior," the prince said, and then turned to the right. With another motion of his hand, two figures stepped from concealed shadows. Wyatt's eyes grew wide as the flickering effect around the duo died out alongside the stealth field around them. The first figure was a beautiful blonde woman with purple eyes as striking as that of the prince. She was wearing a green dress with golden and white trims. Behind her stood a taller woman with blue hair and blue eyes that had a striking similarity to the woman who had stood up for him moments before. She was also quite beautiful, but her expression was stoic. Unlike the princess, she wore a red armored suit with the crest of her house on her chest. Lieutenant Wyatt Staples, let me introduce you to the VIP that you saved yesterday. My sister, the second princess, Clara Astor. Behind her stands her bodyguard and a close friend of mine, Cynthia Winfield of House Winfield. You've already met her older sister, Commander Juliana Winfield, the prince introduced. It was subtle and he barely noticed it, but Wyatt could notice the pride in the prince's voice alongside his relief when he introduced the two women. Princess Clara was the picture of regal royalty, feminine grace, and superb intelligence behind her fiery gaze. A gaze, he noticed, that matched her brother's. When she spoke, her voice of sing-song clarity carried the intensity of her fiery spirit without losing her elegance. Lieutenant Staples, I was told that it was through your actions that my life and that of my friend and subjects were saved. I requested my brother to see and speak to you in person so I may see and judge the man I owe my life to, she said, offering a kind smile. Wyatt felt his cheeks blushing. His social skills were poor at best, and being under the direct attention of such a beautiful woman was something he was not used to. Still, he managed to stand firm and give her a cordial salute. Your Majesty, I am honored to receive your recognition. To know that your life and that of those accompanying you are safe and sound is reward enough, he replied carefully and respectfully. Clara let out a giggle. Please, Lieutenant Staples, you need not be so nervous in my presence. Your gallantry is already enough for me to accept you for the valiant man that you are. Commoner or not, you are my savior. I am pleased that my brother dearest had rewarded you accordingly, even if I myself would give more. But alas, I cannot. Therefore, I can only offer my gratitude and a request to speak my name without those bothersome honorifics. Call me Clara. All my friends do so. Wyatt couldn't help but smile widely and sincerely at that. They were rare, but nobles that were actually worth their salt and weren't up their own asses existed, and he was glad that the princess was one of them. He felt his nervousness ease up and his posture relaxed. In that case, Clara, please, call me Wyatt. Pleased to meet you, he said, offering his hand. A second later, he retracted it. Oh, right, sorry. To his surprise, the prince's laughter caught his attention. You're quite blunt, aren't you, Lieutenant Wyatt? Wyatt pointed a finger at himself. Commoner upbringing, my liege. The prince let out a single humorous chuckle before clearing his throat. As enjoyable as this is, I'm afraid we have other matters to attend to. Lieutenant Wyatt, I summoned you not only to meet my sister, but because I need your input. A second later, a holographic display appeared from the large tactical table at the center of the bridge. Wyatt took a couple of steps forward when he saw the visual representation of the entire principality and how the map was divided into several colors, with red, green, golden, and blue being the most prominent colors, and countless sigils and emblems scattered across the systems that made up his home. The sheer enormity of the principality was awe-striking and terrifying at the same time. Duke Draymore's coup was an act of treachery unparalleled, the prince began, his stoic, firm, fiery tone returned. I don't know for how long he's been planning it, but we've suspected treachery for at least 2 standard years. Nothing concrete was found until he made his opening move. The royal guard was compromised, the royal palace was besieged, and within scant hours, he named himself regent. Thankfully, I was able to escape as well as other members of the Council of Nobles and some of my siblings. Regretfully, however, Duke Draymore was able to capture our 2 remaining sisters, Megan and Ruby, and 2 of our brothers, Leon and Caldro, and is keeping them hostage and as bargaining chips. My 2 remaining brothers, Alexander and Giovanni, were also able to escape, and alongside Clara, they served as distractions to allow my safe passage out of the system and find refuge among friends and loyal subjects. As it stands, Duke Draymore is gaining power slowly but surely, the prince explained, pointing at the red area on the map. In red are the houses that have sided with my uncle so far and represent their territory. In golden are loyalist houses that have pledged themselves to me and the royal family. In blue are those undecided. And in green are those that have declared themselves as neutral, the prince said. And suddenly the map zoomed in. Wyatt soon recognized the map was projecting the small cluster of systems and worlds that made up the backwater he served under, better known simply as the lingering systems. Technically speaking, the 7 star systems and the small collection of worlds in them that made up the lingering systems were under the control of House Caiston. But in reality, they were almost outpost systems with little to offer except for whatever scant resources and manufacturing goods that could be gained there. In fact, the greatest produce made was the very reason he was a garbage hauler: compost. The richer and fertile surrounding territories needed compost for agricultural purposes and were the sole reason why the lingering systems were populated at all and why they were blessed with the leadership of a Caiston noble. However, everyone knew that such a position was either a punishment or a means to gain safety.
Alright, we almost have the
incompetent, petulant
hauler here.
Hell, they were such a backwater and so poor that pirates were
The miner.
an ideal place to elude pursuers. Though it seems Duke Draymore thought of that possibility as well, hence why that strange black ship attacked the royal yacht. We will be traveling to the Keone system next. Our planned route takes us near Faldo, the only inhabited world in the system. According to our intelligence, pirate presence is minimal, and there is no direct Caiston presence there since Faldo is home to a mere 10 million populace. I understand the gravity of the situation, my prince, but how am I to aid you? What further input can I provide? Wyatt asked cautiously. There is a problem that my commanders are not able to settle, the prince replied, and the map zoomed further in to showcase the Keone system and 3 systems that led directly to Caiston territory. Since the coup, we cannot trust the information we had before, and we cannot trust just anyone with information. However, fortunately for us, a loyal son of the Principality is with us and can provide us with a viewpoint that only a commoner can have. I ask you, Lieutenant Wyatt, what path do you think is the most viable for us to take and quickly move onto House Finnegan territory? Wyatt didn't even ponder the question and pointed to the system on the far left called Jintrax. Going through Jintrax is the only solution, my liege. Jintrax, but there's a strong Caiston military presence alongside several monitoring stations, Commander Redford interjected. Wyatt shrugged. Only officially, but they are always understaffed. The ships stationed there are little more than outdated, cheap gunships and corvettes at best. And they take forever to answer to any emergency. Besides that, there's Woodshaft. Woodshaft? Clara asked, tilting her head in confusion. It's a smuggler den. Every commoner pilot and serviceman in the lingering systems knows about it and uses it. I've been there only twice, but it offers a path away from Caiston sensors, and if you pay the toll, you can leave the system undetected, Wyatt explained and internally chuckled. Caiston Blue Bloods don't care where the money comes from, only that it reaches their grabby, greedy paws, he thought with mirth. Smuggling is illegal, the surprisingly melodic voice of the blue-haired woman, Cynthia Winfield, declared. Maybe, Wyatt replied softly, but it happens. Woodshaft doesn't deal in slavery or narcotics, though. They're smugglers, not pirates, he clarified. After we arrive at Faldo, I'll send out a scout ship ahead to observe Jintrax's activity. If the information correlates, we shall advance as you suggested, Lieutenant Wyatt. Time is a luxury we can't afford much as we stand now, the prince said, crossing his arms. For now, you shall follow Commander Redford's orders and be under his charge. Dismissed. I guess this is really happening, Wyatt thought as he stared intently at the vanishing map. Chapter 4. As it turned out, the arrival at Faldo took 3 days as the fleet had to use sublight speed in order to travel within the powerful gravitational influence of the local star. The scout ship the prince deployed upon their entry into the Keone system departed from the rest of the fleet and went to Jintrax while the rest moved to resupply at the only inhabited rock in the system. In the meantime, Commander Redford Kalon had taken him under his wing just as the prince had ordered and taught him everything he needed to know about his new duties, responsibilities, and what was expected of him. In short, He was now supposed to lead small groups of Marines and a squadron of fighters, or serve as a division officer in charge of keeping order and solving logistical issues within his division. 3 things he had absolutely no idea how to do. But even if that wasn't the case, being a commoner further limited what he could do. Thus, Commander Redford had simply taken him as his personal aide. Not an inglorious position for a mere commoner, to be sure, but that had just proven that his newly attained rank was just for show. Wyatt waited patiently next to the simulation training chamber his direct officer was making use of, while other officers murmured just below his hearing range, but their eyes were on him all the time. I wish I could punch some of these blue bloods right in the face and show them they'll bleed just as well as I, he thought bitterly, as he caught a snide glare from a female officer before she entered an empty training chamber. The chime of the training chamber rang, and the door opened on the oval-shaped room. The older gray-haired man stepped out with a disapproving gruff, and Wyatt could see why. On the screen he was monitoring, the result was marked as a failure of whatever GVK 990 simulation was. This was Redford's 7th attempt, and his 7th failure. "Do you require anything, Commander Redford?" Wyatt asked respectfully, noticing that the glares and murmuring suddenly stopped the second Redford exited the chamber. "A meal will do," the older man replied. "Come, Lieutenant Wyatt, I'm certain you must be famished." "Sir," he replied, bowing his head and walking next to his commanding officer. As they walked, Wyatt spoke up. "Commander, may I ask you something regarding your training?" The older man exhaled loudly, but only half in frustration. "Is it about the simulation?" "Indeed so, Commander. I must confess I hardly ever got a chance to train in a chamber. Most of my training was conventional, as per the Academy's traditions and requirements, of course, so I am unfamiliar with the training available to the nobility," he replied sincerely. "Why would you allow commoners to get even a glimpse of a chance at showing you up, right?" Redford actually slowed his pace as he turned to look at Wyatt. "How many times have you trained in the chambers?" Wyatt blinked, confused. "A dozen times, maybe 2 or 3 times more. I do not recall the exact number, Commander, and I was only allowed to run the basic piloting exercises needed for my practical exams. That shouldn't be the case. More so for a warrant officer. You should have over 1,000 hours of registered simulated training at least to have achieved that rank," Redford asked, surprised and intrigued. "I suppose," Wyatt replied with a shrug. "But I always aced my practical exams and, let's just say some of my teachers and instructors hated my guts," he replied, embarrassed. "Not enough to want me expelled, but enough to try and sabotage me every now and again. Nothing serious, I assure you. Missing items, tarnished uniforms, misconduct reports, regulation restrictions, that sort of thing." Redford frowned slightly. "Even if you're a commoner, such actions couldn't be allowed in the Academy, no matter the branch or location. Did you not report this misconduct, Wyatt?" He nodded. "Several times, but since the ones doing the sabotaging were not students, it was swept under the rug every time. So I stopped trying to get justice and decided to just finish my training, achieve the rank of warrant officer, and get a posting where I could serve the Principality. Being a garbage hauler was not what I expected, and certainly not in the lingering systems," he said, hiding his resentment. "Now that I recall, you mentioned you were part of the 3rd Fleet's 2nd Frontier Corps. As lackluster as the 3rd Fleet is, sending a warrant officer as a garbage hauler seems to me less like a grave oversight on the part of the commanding officers and more like a humiliating tactic meant to punish someone for a grave offense." His furrowed eyes softened. "What did you do, Wyatt Staples?" "I showed them I was a better pilot than they could ever be. That's what I did. I didn't gloat, I didn't rub it on their faces more than once or twice. Even so, my grades and actions spoke for themselves, and they hated me for it. I kicked the ass of every instructor set against me, and I put to shame everything my teachers think they knew about combat. My classmates, both commoners and nobles, knew I was better than them, but they only pushed me aside, unlike the pricks that wanted to tear me down," he thought angrily, but didn't allow it to show. "I only did what was asked of me. Every test they set, I passed. I may or may not have made an unsavory comment about their lackluster performance in comparison to mine, given they were my
Let's see, let's put the
I believe my records should be on the Third Fleet's data
The
center.
containers.
Darkly. Although they must now either
I'm gonna
flag
put the
me as a
containers this
reserve
time
KIA or as a
on the
traitor.
top here.
The Third Fleet sided with Duke Draymore, after all. Redford's eyes went wide with surprise. How do you know that? He asked hurriedly. No one outside the top chain of command knows that yet? Wyatt shrugged. The Third Fleet has always been referred to as a joke, even in the Academy. The Dead Man's Fleet, they call it. A leftover fleet without a single battleship in their ranks, and with more outdated ships than actual experience, commendations, and achievements in their history. So either a mutiny happened, or the Admiral in charge sided with Duke Draymore's faction. Malcontent and a chance to be on the right side of history pushed them to that decision, I think. I didn't know about the coup or any political problems between nobles since I was stuck at my posting until I was lucky enough to lend aid to you, Commander. Even so, the Third Fleet is scattered, and I'm sure there will be many deserters, mostly commoners in postings similar to mine, once the news of the coup spread to the public, he replied, not mouthing his last train of thought. Any disgruntled noble would take such a chance to better the standing of their houses, uncaring of how many lives they have to sacrifice. Redford was momentarily stunned, then sighed. You are correct, Lieutenant Wyatt. Admiral Cornelius Tygan sided with Duke Draymore. Luckily for us, the bulk of their forces were out of position and busy patrolling their core territories. Being understaffed, undermanned, and flying outdated ships played in our favor. The fact that you could deduce that on your own with little input means that many more already know, or at least suspect this, and none have been forward to speak out. Most likely, sir. Wyatt replied, still feeling uneasy.
I like it. We have a big cargo, big container here.
It seems we sidetracked from your original question, but you have given much to think about, Wyatt. Redford sighed. To answer
Now
your
I
question,
will put a
the simulation
connector.
I attempted is one of the infamous unwinnable
A small
scenarios.
connector
They are not meant to be won, but to last as long as
or a
possible
normal
and achieve
connector?
an
I think I'll do a
honorable end.
normal
A
connector.
commanding officer must always be ready to make the maximum sacrifice. But how to achieve the greatest result is something that eludes many. GVK 900 in particular
Fuck,
is
is this a
puzzling one.
connector?
I've been trying to pass it for 2 years now and failed in every attempt. It must be one hell of a difficult simulation if even a commander is struggling with it so much, Wyatt thought with some pity for his commanding officer. I don't know what to say, Commander. It is the first time I've ever heard of such types of simulations. Indeed, Redford replied, eyeing the black-haired commoner turned lieutenant. Tell me, Wyatt, have you received your implants yet? My what? Wyatt replied, flabbergasted. Implants? What implants? I'm a commoner. Anything besides my ID implants would be wasted on the likes of me. That is most strange. I was certain I had flagged your appointment this morning, Redford said, and his dull gray eyes flashed for a moment with barely noticeable blue light. You were rescheduled without my notice. It seems I will have to deal with this matter personally. Sir! Wyatt came to a halt outside the mess hall, turning in full to face his commanding officer. I'm just a commoner. I wasn't aware I would be receiving implants of any sort. Surely they can be put to better use on worthier people, he said carefully. You are a lieutenant now, Wyatt Staples. Commoner or not, your rank cannot be ignored and must be respected for nothing else other than that alone. You shall receive your implants after we have our meals, he said seriously, and then offered a small but sincere smile. Now, I believe the door must be open? Wyatt blinked, blushed in embarrassment, and quickly turned to open the door for Commander Redford. Following the imposing man, he felt a tinge of respect blossom within him. The mess hall was full and divided into 3 segments. The largest one was for the regular commoners who served as pilots, general staff, servicemen, and general enlisted personnel. The second section was for officers and their aides, as well as other lieutenants, squadron leaders, ensigns, and the only place a commoner could ever enter if he achieved the rank of warrant officer, the lowest rank allowed in such a section. The third section was meant for senior and commanding officers and was, of course, a closed-off section filled with their own private chefs and rations. As a lieutenant, he couldn't enter that section and followed Redford until a pair of security guards opened the doors for him. With a single nod from him, Wyatt saluted and went on to take his place on the small line formed before the buffet. Like usual, none talked to him, and they all set their silent, judging eyes upon him. they leave me alone, he thought as he served himself a piece of steak, various vegetables, and a helping of mashed potatoes. If there's one thing I can say I am glad it improved, that's the food. No more gruel, tasteless pills, and awful ration bars for a little while. Now, where will I... Oh, spoke too soon. This was going to happen sooner or later, he thought as he turned around, searching for a table and seeing a trio of well-uniformed men, also lieutenants, walking up to him. Their gray eyes revealed their implants, and their smug expressions gave away that they were nobles. In any other place, I would assume they were bastard children or the last in line, but in here, I'm not sure. When the trio stopped just a meter in front of him, he spoke in a practiced tone that conveyed veiled submission and respect. How may I be of service? You can start by telling us what really happened, Commoner. The red-haired leader of the trio, the tallest and bulkiest, spat with eyes that showed nothing but contempt. How many lies did you tell to trick His Majesty that you could be anything worthwhile? None. Technically untrue, but also technically true, Wyatt replied without losing his tone. I was merely able to provide assistance to Commander Redford's vessels at a dire time. I expected no reward.
Well, I like this
but I was
conveyor
rewarded
tube 5 by
nonetheless.
1. That's something I need.
It seems this commoner
It's actually
speaks with
quite
some
good.
sense. The shorter, fatter of the trio said, while the last member, a lanky but nimble-looking man, glared at him. But now he thinks he can share our space. Disgraceful.
I don't think it exists
The
in
lanky
small
man
space.
felt his glare intensifying. Even if I wasn't rewarded, he replied, careful not to say promoted, despite how much he wanted to shove it in their faces. I was a warrant officer, and, according to regulations, warrant officers are allowed to dine in this section. If my presence offend you, lords, I shall leave. The red-haired man smirked. At least you know your place. Very well, commoner scum. I shall forgive your transgressions if you do one simple task for me. His smirk widened. Bark, like the lowly dog you are. Is this blue-blood idiot for real? Wyatt thought, bemused. Oh, he is serious. How far is he up his own ass? No matter, he thought before clearing his throat. Bark! 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 Wyatt barked as best he could without a shred of shame in doing so. The three nobles were stunned.
They said
along
bark
with the
instead
rest
of
the
saying
mess
woof.
hall watching the confrontation proceeding. He noticed some were stunned cold, others groaned, disappointed that there would be no blood involved, and the rest simply didn't care enough to spare more than a few seconds of their attention. The three nobles, though, began to laugh. They laughed for several moments until Wyatt
Yes,
spoke
for
up.
what?
Will that be all, lords?
Oh,
Leave our
el
sight,
señor se fue a
mongrel,
comer.
the red-haired one ordered.
Que se iba a ir a comer, que regresaba en un
Without
ratito.
another word directed at him, but we're now celebrating the
Love you.
humiliation they dished out. Fools, he whispered to himself in a tone so low he barely heard it, while a triumphant smirk adorned his lips. Searching for an empty table, he sat and began to enjoy his meal, unaware that other eyes had been set on him since the moment he entered the mess hall. Chapter 5. Wyatt came to a quick conclusion after receiving his 3 scheduled implants. The process was puzzlingly quick, but the pain was something he was not willing to deal with voluntarily in the future. Due to the limitations of the medical wing and the current state, he wouldn't be receiving his cybernetic eyes, which suited him just fine, and he was in no hurry to replace his perfectly functioning natural eyes. Nor would he receive a direct uplink to the main net frame. But he didn't care about that one, since that particular implant needed either the cybernetic eyes or go through the gene-enhancing program that was available only to the highest echelons of society in the Principality. The implants he did receive were impactful, and he wobbled with every step he took. The first was a series of nano-injectors that now laced his vertebrae and would, over a few hours, make their way to his brain. The injectors would then be ready to dull pain, enhance his reaction time, and combat neurotoxins should that be needed. The second implant was the one he was currently hating the most. At the back of his skull now sat a small biomechanical chip that would allow Commander Redford, or whoever the commanding officer at the time was, to deliver him orders and instructions. He could feel the chip wriggling into position, slowly growing to prevent rejection, and was now messing with his ears, dulling his sense of stability and cutting his hearing range by a significant amount as it latched itself in order to provide its benefits. In short, it was a sort of long-range, one-way radio. He could receive orders but couldn't reply in turn since he wasn't connected to the network. As long as the distance didn't exceed more than 100 kilometers from the nearest network access point, that is. The third implant, though, was the main reason why he would not ever take any further implantations if he could help it. Sure, the first two hurt in their own unique ways. His back was killing him, and the nasty headache he was going through did him no favors. But the last one was in a league of its own. Similarly to the nano-injectors on his back, the third implant followed that same process. But instead of connecting with his brain and limiting itself to his column, the rest of his body was the objective. Well, not his whole body, just his bones. A subdermal implant was inserted in his chest, as close as possible to his aorta. Thanks to the local anesthesia and the quick, precise motions of the robotic unit performing the seconds-long surgery, he didn't feel a thing, and his wound was closed a moment later with biofoam. The scar would be gone in just a few days at most. The pain, though, made itself known half an hour later. It began like an itch he couldn't quite scratch, but all over his body and underneath his skin. Then it increased until every step was agony as it rippled across his whole body. It felt like getting pricked by a needle, but unlike a single stab that was barely painful, annoying, and quick to pass, he was enduring hundreds of them at the same time with every movement he made. Even breathing is a struggle, he muttered, as he continued to wobble his way around the hangar, only occasionally hearing the snickering of technicians, mechanics, and the odd pilot that made their way there. I understand that the ship doesn't have the facilities to do this in private, but their staring is not helping my mood one bit, he thought with annoyance, as a fresh wave of pain coursed through his body. He couldn't even hate or blame the medic in charge for anything. She had warned him of what he was to expect, and what he needed to do for the implants to take full root. That was the main reason he couldn't sit down or lay on his bed, trying to be still as a corpse in an attempt to lessen the pain. And why he couldn't take painkillers either. He had to endure the process fully awake and on constant move, which, as he was reminded again as he nearly tumbled to the ground for the 7th time since his arrival, his hatred for the second implant increased. The pain of having his bones suffer microfractures every second only to be sealed and put back together almost instantly, he could handle. It wasn't enough to make him scream, but it was a ticking, maddening constant that he couldn't help but wince, groan, and clench his teeth in response to it. But the sensation of impending vertigo and his impaired balance, making it impossible to keep a steady posture or any semblance of rhythm? Yes, he hated the second implant with a passion. As he finished another round, he noticed a vaguely familiar figure enter the hangar. Her red armor and blue hair gave her away as she approached in his direction. The few staring crew members made themselves scarce at her sight, opting to admire her from a safer distance. Damn, what was her name again? Juliana? No, that's her sister, right? Ugh, come on, think. Damn this headache. Her name started with a C, I think? Cecilia? Celestine? Cynthia! Yes, her name was Cynthia Winfield. He mentally patted himself on the back for remembering just in time before the blue-haired woman said something he couldn't quite catch. Her voice was still pleasant to hear, but distorted thanks to the implant. Not to be disrespectful, he began, voice entirely too loudly, and stopped for a moment to face her. Grave mistake. As the moment he stopped moving, he felt as if the ground was about to become the ceiling the wall, and his feet his arms. With a mighty groan, he pushed himself to the side, catching himself before he fell and continued walking. Pain rocked his senses, and he gritted his teeth hard in protest, but he succeeded. The sensation of vertigo lessened, and now he could wobble in peace again. After a few seconds, he spoke up as he noticed the blue-haired woman looking at him with a hint of pity and understanding in her sapphire blue eyes. Sorry about that. The implants won't allow me to follow protocol for now, he apologized. How may I? A pained groan cut him off. Be of service? Breathe deeply and don't fight the pain. You're straining yourself that way. Calm, deep breaths. Let your lungs do the heavy lifting, Lieutenant Staples, Cynthia replied, as she walked beside him and spoke louder than usual so he could hear her voice. Wyatt did as instructed, though it was difficult, and the first attempt made his entire ribcage protest in anger. But he didn't give up and continued. It took the better part of 5 minutes until breathing no longer hurt, and much to his joy, the pain lessened considerably. Another 5 minutes later, his vertigo also diminished, most of his hearing returned, and the headache was not as prevalent as before. During that time, Cynthia walked silently at his side as a regal pillar of unshakable duty, and her advice was greatly welcomed by Wyatt, now that he reaped the benefits of it. Thank you, Lady Cynthia. I feel much better now. I suspect that given the condition I found you,
Let's
you were
go
not
on a
taking
little
proper physical steps to aid you in the
on a little
implant
mining
adjustment
mission
period,
here.
she stated, as a matter of fact. Wyatt nodded lightly. I wasn't aware there were any to begin with, Lady Cynthia. I was merely told that I needed to keep moving and that I shouldn't take painkillers. Again, I thank you for your aid. To his surprise, he saw her stoic face turn into a displeased one, frown and all. I will report this immediately. Such gross oversight cannot go unnoticed. She closed her eyes for 2 seconds, then opened them again, her expression returning to the picture of professional neutrality. It has been done. Did she actually do it, or is she just pulling my leg? He asked himself, but put it to the side in favor of her previous aid. I thank you, Lady Cynthia, but won't you get in trouble for it? I may not be a part of the military structure as I hold no official rank, but as Princess Clara's bodyguard, my position stands above many in terms of importance and weight. Protocol must be followed for order to exist, and its structure must be respected in due turn. You are a Lieutenant Wyatt Staples before you're a commoner, and your rank was insulted by the denial of proper medical insight and exercises, and thus you suffered more pain and discomfort than necessary. I can assure you I will not be punished for exposing such gross incompetence, she replied with a stern, serious tone. Oh shit, color me pleasantly surprised. Another noble worth her title, though she's a stickler for rules too. Now I understand why she protested about Woodshaft's smuggling operations. I wonder if Princess Clara has any influence in her attitude and views, he wondered before giving her a
Alright.
nod. In that case, I thank you for your aid, Lady Cynthia.
And we
You may call me
have
by my name, Lieutenant Wyatt. My princess has bestowed the courtesy of extending me her
46,000
hand of friendship and the
ton,
use of her
pounds,
name
tons.
without honorifics. You saved my life as well, so I
Alright.
offer the same courtesy, she revealed.
Let's
with a
group
hint
the
of humility.
drills.
Despite everything, Wyatt couldn't stop a smile from spreading on his lips. Without so much pain
And then
clouding his mind and being able to think more or less properly again without the headache, his awkwardness returned as well as a clear
There we go.
reminder of his position. In that case, Cynthia, you may call me by my name too. Very well, she replied, and suddenly turned on her heel in a swift, clean motion that would have put a ballerina to shame with how smooth it was despite her bulky armor. Follow me. My princess wishes to speak to you in private. Commander Redford has been informed, and you have been granted leave until my princess says otherwise. I obey. He
Got
replied
22
with the
minutes of
calm
mining.
answer expected to give to a noble issuing an order outside the military branches. And here I thought I would never speak to her again. I wonder what she wants from me. Wyatt followed Cynthia at an even pace, never stopping his controlled, steady breathing. The trip took no more than a few minutes until they made it to one of the commander's quarters, which served as the temporary room for the princess. Outside the door stood 2 black, meter-tall cylinders. He watched as the bodyguard put her hand on the scanner and then introduced a long, complicated code. When she was done, the cylinders turned white and the doors opened. Wyatt advanced as Cynthia stepped aside to give him access to the room. He raised an eyebrow in confusion. Enter, Wyatt, Cynthia ordered. You're not coming in? He asked, just to make sure his assumptions were not mistaken. Clara wishes to speak with you in private, she replied, and said nothing more. Wyatt nodded, and a ball of iron suddenly manifested itself in his stomach. He'd heard stories and other gossip that when a commoner was invited to a noble's room in private, it was for one of 3 things: murder, sexual reasons, or simple amusement. He wasn't one to believe such hearsay, but now he wasn't so sure about it. Still, he stepped into the lavishly ample room with just some trepidation seeping through his otherwise practiced mask. 3 steps into the room, the door behind him closed with a rasp of metal and a hiss, sealing it behind him. The ball of iron turned into a veritable pit, and he began to sweat nervously. The room was quite ample, he had to admit. There was a large bed on the other end, a large private bathroom to his right, and expensive pieces of furniture set about the place. but his focus was on the blonde woman sitting on a chair in front with a small circular desk set before her, holding a few confectionery treats and a violet liquid he wasn't sure what it was. "Ah, Wyatt, please come sit. I wish to discuss a few things with you," Clara said, offering him a sincere, friendly smile. The pit shrank in since, but didn't leave him. "Okay, Wyatt, play it cool and try not to get murdered. Don't say anything stupid or offensive and you may walk out of this in one piece. A noble is already dangerous. Royalty? Doubly so," he thought as he obeyed and sat on the available chair. Immediately after, small electrical shocks erupted all across his back, arms, and legs, but they were not unpleasant. If anything, the pain was further reduced and was now only mildly annoying. Seeing his puzzled expression, Clara giggled. "I am aware of your current condition, Wyatt. The Dulaxis, Ontoro, and Kinator implants are some of the worst there are. Necessary, but bothersome to deal with. That chair is specially designed to allow your body to work on its own while you are seated. It doesn't replace physical activity, but it makes it far more tolerable for some time." Wyatt bowed his head. "I thank you for your benevolence, Clara. How may I be of service?" "I wish to know more about you, Wyatt. Without access to your records, I'm afraid I know nothing more than what you can tell and show," she said before sipping from her drink. "Do help yourself to some desserts. They are delectable, I can assure you." "Don't mind if I do," he thought, as he reached for a small round thing covered in white fudge and topped with some sort of red fruit. He ate it, and his eyes widened as the explosion of flavor overwhelmed his taste buds, and only by sheer will of restraint, he stopped himself from scarfing down the entire plate of good stuffs. He munched on the offered treat slowly, savoring the exquisite sweet thing in his mouth. When he swallowed, a satisfied sigh escaped his lips. "What are these?" he asked, enamored with the sweet things. "Cake, a small version of them. There are also cookies, scones, and chocolate bits. The glass is filled with grape juice," she replied gently. "Go on. You can eat as much as you desire." "I might just do that. What in the blazes is grape juice, cake, and chocolate?" he asked himself before taking 2 of each treat with as much humility as he could muster. As much as he wanted to abuse the princess's goodwill in this particular subject, he knew better. "I'm an open book, Clara. What do you wish to know of me, though I assure you I am not remotely interesting in any way?" "I shall be the judge of that, Wyatt," Clara replied before eating a small piece of chocolate. "Tell me, where are you from?" "I'm from Volantis, Your Majesty. A little colony of no importance in the territory belonging to House Gimor under the supervision of Baron Carlos Arante, bordering Caiston territory, actually. To be specific, I was born and raised in Volantis's capital city, Fire. My family is of little note. My father is an electrical engineer and my mother is a social worker. I have 2 younger brothers, one of whom followed our father's footsteps and the other became a Clixal hunter," he replied honestly. Clara tilted her head slightly. "What is a Clixal?" "It is an avian-like creature, 3 meters tall. Fierce, durable, and quick creatures, but stupid. They are a constant problem to the agricultural areas of the planet as they breed extremely fast and eat all sorts of livestock while destroying crops in the process," he replied, before eating a cookie and taking a sip of grape juice. "Is this what royalty eats regularly? I wouldn't mind groveling at her feet if it means I get to eat these things every now and again. And the juice? It is the best drink I've ever tasted," he thought giddily, his nervousness all but eradicated, and the pit in his stomach replaced by a longing for more of those tasty, sweet treats. It was as if he hadn't eaten at all in the mess hall. Clara sipped on her juice, nodding twice. "I see. How old are you, and how were you raised?" "I'm 21 years old, and I guess I was raised as best as my parents could afford," he said, unsure. "We rarely went hungry, and only when the taxes were raised for short periods of time. I received the standard education available to all commoners, and once I was 14, I enlisted in the Royal Navy as a pilot. I spent the following years at the academy preparing to be a pilot, and I was good enough to achieve the rank of warrant officer. When I graduated, I was dispatched to the 3rd Fleet, 2nd Frontier Corps, and stationed on the lingering systems as a garbage hauler," he explained simply and politely before eating another cake. "How was your time in the academy? Was it enjoyable? Were you mistreated?" she asked, her friendly smile dropping slightly. Wyatt felt the instant shift in the atmosphere and straightened involuntarily. The purple eyes of the princess were fixed on him, and he suddenly felt like he was being studied. "I do not know what to reply to that, Clara," he replied. What the hell? Why would she care about something like that? I thought she was going to ask about my records or anything besides that. What is she playing at? He thought, setting aside his treats for the time being. I enlisted because I had always wished to become a pilot and see the stars while serving the Principality. My time at the academy was irrelevant to me. I mean, I wasn't treated like most other commoners, so I can't complain too much, I guess. I also can't say that I was mistreated. Sure, there were incidents that required a report, but they went unsolved, and I ignored anything after that, he replied. But inside, he spat with disdain at the memory of the many incidents that tarnished his otherwise exemplary record. Clara kept quiet for several seconds, sipping more of her juice and eating 2 cookies in the process. When she spoke again, she did so in an even, serious tone. Then I assume being ordered to bark like a dog in the middle of a mess hall is considered something to be ignored? For the first time in many years, Wyatt felt his measured and perfectly crafted mask of indifferent servitude falter slightly, and he answered with a frown. Compared to what other nobles usually do? Yes, he replied, and then relaxed. Princess Clara, I'm a commoner. It is the duty of every commoner to obey the orders of a noble, and can only reject them under orders of another of higher standing or from another house or lineage. If you were to order me to, say, drop on all fours and act as an animal for your entertainment, I will do so without hesitation. Clara nodded. Indeed, I could order you to do that, and more shameful things, Wyatt. Be safe to know that I shan't. Unlike those nobles that stand below the garbage you used to haul, I have learned respect towards others, she explained, and her friendly demeanor returned. Though I must say, while it was quite amusing to see you thoroughly humiliate them, I would have preferred it had been done through other means and not see you risk your dignity. Surprised by her words, Wyatt swallowed as he offered a small smile. One must do as one can, Clara. Clara rolled her eyes and waved a hand in dismissal. Please, Wyatt, I want to know the real you, not this proper and cordial veneer you portray. Speak your mind freely and without restriction. Think of me as nothing more than a friend, as I will do the same. None can hear us. This conversation shall not be known to anyone but us. I promise you, you will not be punished or held accountable for anything you say. If this is a test, then I can't see where it bends, he thought, smiling more. Who would have thought that a princess freaking royalty would be so approachable? The respect he had for Clara upon their meeting increased, and he allowed himself to relax once more, careful to retain his breathing rhythm. In that case, Clara, I shall be sincere. I was not afraid to risk my dignity because I have none. Or rather, I care not for it as well as I care not about pride or shame. If I can win by sacrificing something that is worthless to me, then I will happily do so. Clara nodded, sipping from her drink again. Unlike the fools who thought they humiliated you and proudly preened their feathers as if they had achieved something, you showed their incompetence and stupidity. Rest assured, they will be punished for their conduct, but not directly. No surprises there, he thought as he drank more of his juice. Noble immunity and their capacity to bend the rules in their favor were nothing new to him. That being said, I am surprised that you have not expressed worry for the well-being of your family, said the princess. When His Majesty, the prince, showed me the map, I managed to glimpse that House Guimore chose to remain neutral in this conflict. Guimores have a reputation for being opportunistic. I'm sure they will declare themselves for a side once a clear upper hand is held by one side, he replied calmly, not allowing the bit of worry in his heart to show. Clara tilted her head slightly and pushed a finger up against her chin. You don't seem terribly bothered about the coup, Wyatt. Wyatt chuckled darkly, his eyes drifting to the cup in his hand. What other choice do I have? The last great conflict in the Principality was more than 400 years ago. Another coup, unsuccessful but bloody. Trust me, Clara, I am terrified. I will do anything and everything the prince orders me in order to prevent another civil war. But at the end of the day, I'm just a commoner with no power, say, or means to do anything by myself. Not that it matters if I was a noble or even royalty. We are in this conflict together, and the sooner Duke Draymore is put down, the better, he replied sincerely, but internally, he was fuming. Nobles die trying to keep their riches or increase their status and reach. If they can't win, they'll flee. But they always use the lives of the people they are supposed to be in charge of protecting for their own means, and don't care if we have to die in droves as long as it means they win something out of it. Clara's expression fell and her smile was replaced by a sad one. That is a grim and unfortunate view on things, Wyatt? Wyatt shrugged. Maybe. But it is also true and the only view a commoner can have. At least I am in the Navy and can fight back. Most won't have a chance to do anything at all. It is sad that what you say is true, Wyatt. The Principality has changed since its founding, and not always in the ways that mattered, it hurts me to say. Prince Julius Astor would be ashamed of what has become of it if he were to see it today. Doubly so in the case of his progeny. Clara let out a mournful sigh. Thank you for humoring me, Wyatt. You may now leave, and please, take every treat with you. I have more so they won't be missed. Wyatt stood up slowly, bowed his head, and obeyed with gusto the order given to him, gathering all the sweet, sweet treats on his pocket handkerchief. I obey, he said, and a second later the doors opened. Cynthia stood by the entrance waiting for him to exit. They exchanged a curt salute and he left. A moment later, Cynthia entered the room and the doors closed again. Cynthia let out a tired sigh and her expression relaxed. Well, he is unlike what I expected, which is a good thing. He tries to portray himself as someone cordial and straightforward, but he is quite selective about what he says and how to express his thoughts. A cunning man, Clara replied, lips curling up into a smile. He is as valiant as I thought, though, and has a good heart. His loyalty, however, is questionable. Do you believe he may be a potential traitor, turncoat, or spy in disguise, Clara? Cynthia asked. Clara shook her head gently. He is no spy, nor do I believe he could be at any point. He's too honest. A turncoat or traitor? Unlikely. I also doubt he'll run away when a chance presents itself to him. His heart beams with the light of a true knight. His actions that culminated in our salvation are proof of it. I'll keep an eye on him, Cynthia replied. What about the trash? Redford has been informed. Those 3 idiots did it in front of everyone. He shall punish them accordingly, I am certain. Another sip of juice was soon followed by a pleased sigh escaping her lips. However, I am interested in what he can do as a pilot. Cynthia nodded. His unorthodox tactic drove that black ship away. As Redford stated, a man of his talent was wasted in such a posting. He has already prepared a series of simulations to gauge Lieutenant Wyatt's capabilities. Inform Redford that I wish to see Wyatt in action. The fleet shall travel to Jintrax once we are in range to do so. Resupply should be done within 4 hours, and we shall have 3 days of travel until we can leave. Plenty of time to see if his tactic was a fluke, or if there is true talent beneath his actions, Clara replied. Cynthia sighed tiredly, and her judging eyes fell upon her friend. You just want an excuse to watch dogfights, don't you? Clara blushed. Shush, you. Chapter 6. To say that Wyatt was nervous would be an understatement. After his talk with Princess Clara, he enjoyed a few hours of mostly restful respite while enjoying delicious sweets and snacks that filled his heart with delight. Slowly but surely, the pain started to diminish, and his senses returned to normal scant hours after the resupply was completed, just in time for him to enjoy a restful sleep. Right after coming out of the shower, a voice coming from nowhere startled him. It was Commander Redford speaking directly to him through the Ontoro implant, as the princess called the second implant he received, now fully integrated into his cranium and ears. Lieutenant Wyatt, it seems the procedure was a success according to my readings. We shall perform a short test. Indicate to the ship's AI that you copied my message. Wyatt did so, and a few seconds later he heard Redford reply. Splendid. Report within an hour to the training area. That was all Redford said to him. A direct order with no room for debate or misinterpretation. What he didn't understand was why his commander would want to visit the chambers so early. He usually tends to his duties, sensor sweeps, and files some reports, and then exercises. I thought for sure Commander Redford was a man who stuck to a given schedule. Guess I was wrong, he muttered, while making his way to the large room dedicated to simulated training. When he arrived, he saw that all the chambers were empty but ready to be used. Also, 20 large monitors were now hanging from the ceiling. The monitors themselves displayed 20 spots that listed 20 names, his being among them. He turned to his commanding officer with a look of utter bemusement, even as nervousness ate away at his senses. "Commander Redford, why am I listed up there?" he asked dumbly. Redford turned his head Wyatt's way before answering. "Are you not familiar with the training scores?" Wyatt nodded. "I am, Commander. It's just that back at the Academy, that competition was reserved for prominent nobles depending on their paths and specializations." "Right. I forgot how the Academy tends to operate. Most fleets and Royal Command like to be more pragmatic in that approach. As commander of the fighter division, it is my duty and responsibility to oversee the capabilities of those I judge to be my best pilots and pit them against each other in a friendly competition. Ideally, 15 nobles and 5 commoners fill the 20 available spots. This time, though, only 3 commoners with sufficient promise are available to me. You are one of them, Mr. Staples," he finished with a barely perceptible grin. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Couldn't you have asked me first or something?" Wyatt shouted in his mind, nervousness making his innards shift with discomfort. The Academy was one thing, but he was likely going to face experienced fighter pilots, most of them damnable blue bloods, and get thoroughly humiliated in turn. "I wish I was still hauling compost right about now," he thought dejectedly. "You do not seem eager to partake in this competition, Wyatt," Redford said after Wyatt failed to say anything for several seconds. "Shit," he thought in a panic before clearing his throat. "I am merely surprised by the honor of letting me compete, Commander. My skills shall be lackluster in comparison, but I hope they will be enough to please you. As long as you perform exemplary, I shall not find you wanting, Wyatt," Redford replied. His eyes flickered for a moment, and then the AI's voice filled the room. "Pilots, the competition shall begin in a minute. Form up and enter your designated training chamber. You shall be instructed what to do inside it. All of you shall face the same 6 trials. Your results, scores, and video performance shall be streamed live to one of the monitors above you. May the best pilot win." Immediately after, people began to move around, clearing the area and taking up seats on the steps that emerged from the walls and the ground at various points in the room. "Go now, Wyatt. Show me your skills. Don't hold back anything," Redford said, patted his shoulder, and then left. Wyatt followed the older man with his gaze until he was several meters away. Sighing, he straightened up and walked up to his training chamber. Lined up next to him were the other participants, most of them showing nothing but seriousness and conviction. A few were visibly as nervous as he was feeling. He waited for what felt like ages, each second stretching time much like the event horizon of a black hole would do. Then he stiffened even more when he saw 3 familiar figures enter the room. The first was Cynthia Winfield, who then stepped aside to give entry to Princess Clara and her brother, the Prince. Instantly, everyone stood up and saluted in reverence to the 2 royals. The Prince made a gesture, and everyone sat down as silence filled the room. He watched as the trio made their way to where Redford was sitting, and then sat next to him in what was a private booth. Perfect. Just what I needed. Now I'm not only going to embarrass Commander Redford, but the Prince too. I'll be lucky if he only takes away my rank and sends me to the brig, Wyatt thought, wincing internally. "Pilots," the AI said, startling him. "Your chambers shall open in 3, 2, 1. Please enter," the AI ordered, and left without any other choice, Wyatt entered. As the chamber closed behind him, his eyes widened in surprise, and he was unable to keep his mouth shut at what he saw. The training chambers at the Academy were little more than a VR unit, but what he was looking at was a full neural dive unit. It had a pristine, white, and comfortable-looking chair, a set of wires at the top, and the usual console and equipment that a line fighter possessed. He sat on the chair and sank into it with gusto. The wires came to life and quickly latched to his head, wriggling and moving as they created a direct neural interface with his brain.
¿Qué?
He grasped the handles at the end of his armrests and fiddled with
¿Cargador de tu celular?
admiring the graph displays and keyboards in front of him. He grinned widely, his nervousness vanishing. "This ain't the real thing, but it sure feels like it. Damn, I've missed this feeling," he muttered to himself before chuckling. "So what if I'm going against experienced pilots? I'll just do my best and be done with it. Whatever happens next happens, he said, and then waited for the system to start. He didn't have to wait long, as 10 seconds later he felt his brain throb for a split second, then everything around him went black for a moment, only to be replaced by a surprisingly realistic depiction of space, a debris field of sorts. The voice of an AI spoke to him as if he was in a cockpit. The first trial shall be the trial of survival. There are 3 Drazen fighters in the area hunting for survivors. Avoid them until the timer runs out. Then, in front of his display monitor, he saw a 3-minute timer appear. A second later, it began to run. Without wasting a moment to be confused or surprised by the sudden start of the ordeal, Wyatt brought his engines to full max and began to dance and wedge around the debris of gutted ships. He wasn't hugely into history, but he learned his lessons well. He knew where he was. The result of an infamous battle over 1,000 years ago called the Holthan Massacre. The Drazen Collective, a warlike species of plant-based organisms that were mostly carnivorous, attacked the Principality alongside the Arabian Commonwealth, an independent human nation not part of the Pax Humanitas. The two allies only avoided an outright invasion to prevent other, stronger human nations, such as the Imperium and the Albion Federation, from assisting the Principality. Their raids were anything but, though their refusal to enter a full-scale war was the sole reason the Principality eventually managed to force a truce with them after this particular battle. While the Principality won a Pyrrhic victory, the Drazen, ever hateful of other species and desiring to take trophies and feed for themselves, hunted down every stranded fighter, shuttle, and life pod in the system after the battle was over. And now he was tasked with surviving that outcome. Far too easy, Wyatt barked out a laugh when he saw the Drazen fighters appear at the edge of his radar and were slowly but surely closing in on him. Checking the graphs and panels quickly, he discovered that he had 2 Hawk missiles available. No flares, no mines, and his twin-linker coil guns were at 20% ammo capacity. He smirked. Alert! Alert! Enemy fighters are within firing range. Engaging. Shields at 98%, the AI warned. Excellent, Wyatt replied, and spared a moment to ponder about something. This chamber is amazing. It even simulates standard G-forces, but I'm hardly feeling anything. So that's what the Kinetor implant is for. I guess the pain was worth it in the end, he exclaims excitedly, before yanking to the side as much as the ship could handle, triggering his reverse thrusters at the same time, and finally unleashing his 2 Hawk missiles at the leader of the 3 Drazen fighters. The fighters were also burning at max speed, but they were too close to Wyatt's ship to dodge the missiles in time. The 2 missiles impacted the lead fighter, triggering an explosion that destroyed it wholesale. Wyatt didn't celebrate his kill. Instead, he immediately fell upon the second fighter, showering it with a deadly barrage of focused fire. He saw the fighter's shield glow, then pop after 2 seconds of sustained fire, only to then watch how the cockpit was turned into scrap, sending the fighter veering off to the side, lost forever as another piece of debris. The third fighter reacted accordingly, turning to fire upon Wyatt. Warning, shields at 45%, the AI warned. Wyatt ignored it and began to wedge in seemingly random directions as he dodged debris and ire from the third Drazen fighter. He didn't have the ammo left to take down the third fighter like he had done the second, but he had an even better idea. As he moved gracefully at impossible speeds, purposefully taking the most hazardous paths he could find, he noticed that the Drazen fighter, being bulkier and slightly faster than his own, wasn't able to dodge all the debris, and soon he saw its shield pop, and a wing of the fighter was nearly torn completely off in the process. That's when he turned, ignoring a collision that nearly zapped his remaining shields and fired in an arc. Most of his shots missed, but a stream of them landed on target, crippling the ship. Then he saw with satisfaction how the ship tumbled, colliding with a large chunk of what had been a cruiser, and exploded. He looked at the remaining time and saw he still had 50 seconds to spare as the countdown had stopped. Everything around him went dark, and then the view was replaced by a new vision of space, this time around a marvelous battleship as he flew in formation with other fighters. Checking his monitors again, he saw that his weapons were fully loaded. Prepare to engage! Prepare to engage! Delta Squadron, keep formation and follow my lead. An unknown but commanding voice ordered. Instantly, Wyatt obeyed and wondered what was going to happen next. Then, he saw it. A group of frigates and freighters that could only belong to the Ikanti hierarchy came into view. Unlike the Drazan, the Ikanti were an avian alien species that had once been defeated by the Principality, and then, centuries later, the Principality was humiliated by them due to sheer incompetence on the Principality's side. But he didn't recognize what was going on. The situation he was in didn't seem familiar to any battle he was aware of. So this is either a raid or a kill and destroy action, he muttered to himself, frowning. He didn't approve of such actions. That was one of the reasons he detested pirates. But raiding alien supplies or disrupting their trade lanes? Well, he also didn't like it unless they were the Drazan. He hated them with a passion and wouldn't spare a second thought if that was the case. But he knew a few Icantis, and he liked the smaller, chirpy aliens. But orders are orders in this case, he said, divorcing himself from his personal feelings as the AI chimed again. This is the second trial, the trial of obedience. Do not deviate from the orders given and fulfill them with optimal capacity. And thus, Wyatt went through the motions, no matter how much he disliked it. He fought off the Drazan fighters, said Cynthia Winfield with apparent surprise. It was most commendable, Clara added, her eyes glued to the screens as she admired one assault after the other. Indeed it was, agreed Redford, stroking his chin. Few pilots make the conscious choice to fight instead of trying to flee or hide. Fewer still pass the simulation that way. And yet, his gaze fixed itself on the timer and narrowed his eyes slightly. Lieutenant Wyatt nearly broke the record on his first try. Surely you jest, Commander Redford, Cynthia countered. Have you seen the ease of his maneuvering? Almost as soon as the simulation started, he engaged his engines, announcing his presence to the enemy. He must have practiced this or similar trials extensively before, most likely in the Academy. You have yet to read my report, Redford countered while watching Wyatt obeying the orders given by the squadron leader with exemplary accuracy and without doubt. Wyatt has stated that he did not receive more than a dozen trial runs in the training chambers, and then only for the basics when he was allowed. He garnered his experience through practical means and, most likely, patrol deployments. Preposterous, Cynthia replied, her stoic facade faltering as shock crossed her features. That is remarkable, Clara exclaimed, unable to hide her excitement. It seems I was correct. I have won this bet, brother dearest, she said, turning to face her silent brother. Do not count victory just yet, Clara. 4 simulations remain. Redford, I trust you made the competition substantially difficult, yes? The prince countered, impassive. I have done my best, my liege, but already I can conclude that Wyatt Staples is a man of immense talent. Once the implants fully integrate with him and with more experience, we could very well have in our hands an ace or more than that, Redford replied. Do you think he'd be capable of command at some point? Cynthia asked, watching as the freighter exploded and the simulation ended. Above, Wyatt's score went up again, putting him among the top 5. He does not have the training, the capabilities and calling for it. Who is to tell? I shall do my best to groom him into an exceptional commander if he is to gain another rank given the chance, Redford answered, but frowned. I carefully devised the sequence of the simulations to test various aspects of a pilot's personality, drive, and obedience. Some test the pilot's ability for creative and rapid thinking. Others test patience, morality, and loyalty. So far, he has excelled in both fields. Then we must watch, Clara exclaimed, wincing when she saw a competitor's fighter get destroyed for disobeying a command for the sake of personal glory. Cynthia would have rolled her eyes at her friend's love for space engagements. But she, too, was fixated on the competition, especially on a particular pilot. Another pile of scrap, Wyatt declared with a playful, mocking laughter as he destroyed a 4th drone. After the 2nd simulation ended, the 3rd started. The objective was easy. Destroy the automated drones before one of them can escape and report back to the enemy of his position. Pretty standard mission were it not for the fact that there were 20 drones, and they were sophisticated enough to divide their forces into those that stood behind to fight and those that moved at max speed, escaping the battlefield. At first, he went for the escaping drones, but the moment he destroyed one, another ran away in an entirely different direction. Now he was weaving back between kinetic rounds and laser strikes that tickled his shields. But they were bug bites that would eventually deplete them and destroy them if he wasn't careful. The drones weren't as fast as his fighter and didn't have shields, but were agile and small enough to cause even the fighter's targeting systems trouble. Not to mention that they all had short-range jammers, further complicating the situation. He smirked. But drones are drones. And drones are stupid and predictable, he thought, as he spared a glance at his screen, seeing a dozen drones clumped together behind him. He had spent a minute dodging their attacks and violently shifting directions. In truth, he was herding the drones together. "Computer, lock targets! Fire missiles! Release the mine!" he ordered, and the AI obeyed. He felt his fighter shudder as his 4 Hawk missiles and the mine's lock disengaged. 3 seconds later, the proximity mine exploded when he pressed the manual detonator, destroying the drones pursuing him in a single explosion. Then he watched with satisfaction as one by one the 4 remaining drones were destroyed when the missiles reached them. With that, the trial of extermination ended. Everything around him darkened again, and he took the moment to calm himself, readying himself for the next trial. When the view returned, he was now staring at a heavily damaged Principality frigate, and his communicator instantly detected a rescue beacon signal. "Welcome to the 4th trial. This is the trial of morality. A Principality frigate has been heavily damaged after an engagement with pirates. Render aid to them." Wyatt frowned. "Computer, perform a full sweep of the vessel and the surroundings." "Performing," the AI replied, and remained silent for several seconds. "Complete. The vessel is heavily damaged and is venting atmosphere. Engines are offline. The reactor is still active and providing life support. 177 life signals were detected on board. No other gravitic, radiation, or heat signatures have been detected within sensor range." "Render aid to them," Wyatt replied, crossing his arms and thinking through his possibilities. He couldn't take anyone with him. His fighter was a one-manned vessel. At the rate the frigate was venting atmosphere, he knew he wouldn't even make it half the system away before space claimed the survivors. And there were no other ships or signatures nearby. "Wait!
Bombi?
They were attacked by pirates!
Are you okay?
Where are the pirates?" "Computer, full power to sensors. Search for any large
go
stationary
down?
and moving bodies." "Performing. 2 bodies detected at sensor range limit and moving away. Signatures unknown,"
¿Qué pasó?
the AI informed.
Esta chica
"So it's
ya
not an
me había
ambush."
consultado que
Closing his
era la
eyes,
chica que
he
se iba a
uttered the
entrar a
next
lo de la
words
policía.
quietly.
Y el talón le decía, sí, sí
Target
vas
the
a entrar,
ship's
sí vas a
reactor
entrar,
and
o sea,
fire missiles.
porque
Cannot
porque también yo
comply.
veía
Friendly
que
fire is prohibited.
she's
the
right
AI
for that, o sea,
reported.
that she has the
Of
abilities,
course,
like
Wyatt
everything
chittered.
is good.
He moved his fighter
Pero
around
mis
until he got a
escritores no
clear
me
shot of the
están, o
ship's
sea, como
reactor.
que ya
Without
había tenido
hesitation, he
como un
squeezed the
retraso,
trigger, sending
alguien
hundreds
como
of
que le iba a
kinetic
ayudar
rounds
y
directly
ahora
at the crippled frigate.
le están
10
diciendo que no
seconds of
sabe, que
sustained fire
todo
were
está
enough
así
to
como
puncture the already
en el
damaged
aire y justo
reactor,
le
and with an
sale
explosion that
una,
briefly created a small
runa
star,
que habla de
it
esa
was gone.
estabilidad de que
"This is just
ahorita
a
no está nada
simulation,
definido
damn it,"
y está
he said,
todo en
and
el
all
aire y
darkened
que
again.
y le digo es que o sea
The scene
el
changed
tarot te dice es
again,
que sí puedes
showing a
entrar pero
pitched
right
battle
now
between
you
Drazan
can't
and
for
Principality
some
fleets in the
reason
distance, but close
y
enough that he could see it on the display
y
screens.
pregunté
This is the 5th trial, the trial of bravery. Your
pregunté el
squadron
por
has
qué
been
y
disrupted
la
and you're on
primera
your
todas
own.
las cartas que
Fight
le
on
salió
for
de
the
esa pregunta
Principality.
estuvieron inversas
For the
y le
Principality.
salió la primera
Wyatt.
de propósito inverso, sincronicidad inversa, approval inverso, o sea,
Ajá.
todo otra vez como no, you know,
Ajá.
y le digo es que, o sea, tal vez ahorita sientas que no se están acomodando las cosas, que no, o sea, que todo se está retrasando más, que, o sea, you know, all this that is happening, pero lo que dice el tarot es que el tiempo es relativo y que tal vez ahorita dices no se están dando las cosas, pero se va a dar en el momento correcto, o sea, lo que dice el tarot es como yo, no, o sea, sigue siendo perseverante, probablemente más adelante se vayan a dar las cosas, pero por lo menos ahorita necesitas to go back with your family or go back to your place, to your home, o sea, donde tú te sientas cómoda, porque ella como que tuvo que viajar a otro lado, gastar, rentar, para ver si podía entrar, o sea, like all the process, you know, o sea, tuvo que moverse bien cabrón,
Sí.
ahorrar y, o sea, se ve que no tiene así como que mucho dinero y Y le digo, pero pues la energía está así, o sea, tú te dice como, estaría bien que te hagas una limpia, eso te va a ayudar mucho a relajarte y así, con un baño con hierbas, o sea, eso va a estar bien, pero at least for now, le digo, it feels like something is protecting you to not enter here, because, o sea, pregunto y es como otra vez la traba, de no pasa, no entra, no se estanca, ¿sabes? Y pues ya se puso muy triste. She was like, I don't know what to do, I don't understand, she was like all this, you know. I was like, es que, pues, I'm sorry, like, I don't know why, this is so weird. Le digo, lo que dice las runas es, sigue siendo perseverante, pero también en este tiempo de que puedas como regresar a tu hogar y estar contigo misma, pues también ve qué es lo que quieres, ¿no? Y como que sigue eso, sigue lo que te diga tu intuición. Pero pues, digo, pues siento re feo porque pues, I'm reading this to you, you know, this is not what you would like to hear, pero I feel that you need to go back.
Shit, baby.
Yeah, I feel like shit porque pues el tarot me decía es que si vas a entrar, pero pues it was this energy, you know, desde las veces pasadas de como interferencias y así, pero le digo, luego cuando sale esta runa de Halagas, que es como una H, habla de muchas interferencias externas y que tal vez ahorita frustran nuestros planes, pero es por nuestro mayor bien, o sea, también puedes entrar a la policía, no es como que vas a ir a trabajar al TEC, right? Donde está todo seguro, you know? Maybe something is protecting her. Maybe something is going on and it's better that she doesn't enter. No sé.
Pechales.
Pues sí.
Pero pues maybe she needs a wake up call or I don't know, you know?
No. Si era eso, o también si ella regresa, creo que se le va a dar la oportunidad de hacer una familia. Se me olvidó decirle.
¿Que ella regresa a dónde?
A su casa, o sea, bueno, a su lugar donde vive.
Oh.
Pero hablaba mucho de go back with your family, go back. Pues damn, Bombi, chales.
Ay, bebé. Maybe it's the change of government too that is affecting, you know?
Change of government.
¿Yo?
¿Estás listo? Jugoso, como me gusta.
Amor, I'm streaming, eh?
You didn't tell me.
Mi amor. I think so, Vanelli. I think yes.
Honey, I'm not sick. No.
¿Quién? ¿Me? ¿Luna?
Lingy. Whoa. No. Where's the ball? Where's the toy? No, 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 no. Oh, Luna. Ow. Valentina. Ow. Dreamy.
She jumped straight into it. Congratulations. You have a monster on your hands. Let's see.
At least she gives me kisses.
Well, you're receiving some love.
Qué cara de limón exprimido. Hija, no. Oh my God, no, no. Like she only uses me to calm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Tengo una carne que
Mm.
comer. Te voy a tener que comer. Te voy a tener que comer, cabrona. ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Quién te crees? ¿Quién te crees? ¿Qué te parece eso? ¿Qué te parece eso? Cállese. Cállese ya. Callada. 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 Cállese ya. Silencio. Silencio. ¿Qué? ¿Qué? Silencio. ¿Qué? ¿Tiene alguna queja usted? Ah, bueno. El elixir de la juventud. Luna.
No, Luna. Go with your daddy.